Isabella Marino had just started working 2 days ago for the Romano family. It wasn't an easy job, running errands between the family's clubs, warehouses, and bookmaking joints, but she was happy to have it. She'd been looking for steady work for a long time, and in this city, getting a position under a Don's payroll meant you were protected. Now that she had it, she wanted to do her best. That morning, the skies over Mulberry Street were dark. The air smelled like gunpowder and wet concrete. Heavy rain poured down, making the cobblestones slick and the alleyways reek of gasoline. Isabella clutched her small black umbrella tight as she hurried toward La Fortuna, the Romano family's main social club and front for their operations. She couldn't afford to be late. As she rounded a corner near the docks, something made her stop. An old woman stood there in the rain, shivering. Her wool shawl was soaked through and her feet were bare on the wet pavement. She had no umbrella, no coat, nothing to shield her from the cold wind blowing off the bay. She just stood there, looking lost, like she'd been dropped in a city she didn't understand. Isabella's heart twisted. She stepped toward her. "Nona, take this. You'll catch your death," Isabella said, pushing the umbrella into the woman's hands. "You gotta get somewhere warm." The old woman looked at her with tired, watery eyes and shook her head. "My child, I got nowhere to go. Just came in from Sicily last night. I know nobody here." Isabella felt a pang deep in her chest. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the little money she had, a few crumpled bills, barely enough for lunch. "Here, Nona, take this. Find somewhere to stay." But the old woman refused, pushing the money back toward her. "I can't take what you need for yourself, ragazza mia." Isabella thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Then come with me. I'm heading to work. You can stay at the safe house till you figure your way around." The old woman's eyes welled with tears. "May the saints bless you, figlia mia." Isabella took her by the arm and the two of them walked under the umbrella toward La Fortuna. Inside the club, Isabella found a quiet corner in the back near the card tables for Nona to sit. She got her a dry blanket from the back room. "Don't worry, Nona. I only got a few hours before I'm on break. After that, I'll take you over to my safe house before I come back." The old woman nodded and watched Isabella work. This young woman had so little, yet she was giving her so much. A few hours later, Isabella left during her break, slipping through the rain-slick streets to a nearby deli to buy food for herself and the old woman. Her cash was thin, but she didn't care. Nona needed to eat. While Isabella was out, the front door of La Fortuna swung open. In stepped Valentina De Luca, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She was the fiancée of Don Alessandro Romano, the man who ran the whole family, and she loved showing up unannounced to remind everyone she was going to be the queen of this empire. She spotted the old woman in the corner instantly. Her lip curled in disgust. She said, "Who brought this filthy street beggar in here?" Loud enough for the entire room to hear. Nona slowly looked up, confused. "My child, please don't be angry. I'll leave." Valentina scoffed, crossing her arms. "You better. This is my husband-to-be's club. You're not welcome here, you dirty old woman. Now get out." The old woman shook her head, and her voice calm but edged with steel. "You got no manners, ragazza. I wonder what kind of man would take you as his wife." Valentina's eyes widened with rage. "You poor old woman, shut your mouth and get out before I have you thrown into the street." Nona stood slowly, her frail hands trembling, and walked toward the door without another word. Isabella stepped through the rain back toward La Fortuna, a brown paper bag of food under her coat. But just before she reached the club's front doors, she froze. Nona Rosa was standing outside the iron gates, rain dripping from her hair, her shoulders sagging like she'd walked 100 miles. "Nona, what are you doing out here?" Isabella asked, hurrying over. The old woman heavily sighed. "My child, don't be angry. A young woman came in, told me to get out, said I was dirty, poor, and didn't belong in the Romano family's place." Isabella's jaw tightened. "Who was she?" "She said she was the Don's wife-to-be, name's Valentina." A storm lit in Isabella's chest. She spun on her heel and pushed through the doors of La Fortuna. Valentina was there, lounging in a leather chair near the roulette table, inspecting her nails like she owned the joint. "Valentina," Isabella called, her voice low but sharp. Valentina's head lifted lazily. "Oh, the little errand girl's back. What do you want?" How dare you treat my mother that way? Isabella's voice cut through the room. Valentina laughed. Your mother? That filthy beggar? Please, I told Alessandro not to let you work here, but he didn't listen. Isabella stepped closer. You don't even know if the Don will marry you. Look at yourself. Arrogant, full of nothing but your own reflection. If you can treat a helpless old woman like that, I wonder how you'll treat your future mother-in-law. Valentina scoffed. My future mother-in-law isn't poor and filthy like that woman. She's classy, beautiful, like me. You're blind, Isabella said coldly. You think beauty and money make a good wife? No. A good wife is kind, respectful, loyal. You'll never know what true love is. Valentina shot up from her chair, finger in Isabella's face. I promise you, you'll lose your job. You'll regret crossing me. Isabella's laugh was bitter. I don't care. I don't work for people who spit on the old and the weak. I'm taking my mother home. Keep your filthy threats. She turned on her heel and left, the club door slamming behind her. Outside, Nonna Rosa was waiting. My child, you didn't have to fight for me, she said softly. I had to, Nonna. No one gets to treat you that way. Let's go. They disappeared down the wet street, leaving the sound of rain and the muffled jazz inside La Fortuna behind. After Isabella and Nonna Rosa were gone, Valentina De Luca sat in La Fortuna's private lounge, her red nails tapping against the arm of the leather chair. Her face was twisted with rage. A nobody, an errand girl, had just stood up to her. She reached for the black rotary phone on the desk and dialed. The line clicked. On the other end, a deep voice answered. Valentina, what's wrong? You sound upset. Ale, she said, cracking into a sob. Something terrible just happened. There was a pause. Then, Alessandro Romano's voice grew cold. Isabella did that? Yes, Valentina lied smoothly. And she made it clear she doesn't respect you. She walked out like she runs the place. If you keep her around, Ale, I can't be part of this family. On the other end of the line, Alessandro's jaw tightened. I'll handle it. Go home. Rest. Thank you, amore, Valentina whispered, smirking as she hung up the phone. Let's see you survive this, street girl, she muttered to herself. Meanwhile, Isabella and Nonna Rosa reached Isabella's safe house, a small, dim room above a shuttered tailor shop. The single bulb flickered, the floor creaked under their feet. It wasn't much, an old mattress in the corner, a chipped wooden table, and a pot for boiling pasta, but it was home. Nonna, I know this place is small, but you can stay here as long as you want, Isabella said, pouring her a glass of water. The old woman smiled. My child, it's not about size, it's about the love inside, and I can see you have a good heart. They ate quietly, but halfway through, Nonna Rosa set down her fork and sighed. I came to this city for a reason. Isabella raised her eyebrow. What reason? I came to find a wife for my son. Isabella nearly choked on her bread. Me? Yes, figlia mia, Nonna said, smiling. From the moment I met you, I knew you were special, kind, loyal, hard-working. You'd make a good wife for him. Isabella shook her head in disbelief. Mama, I have to meet him first. We need to know each other before we talk about marriage. That's fair, Nonna said. But I'll tell you now, he's not wealthy. He works hard, he's brilliant, and yes, very handsome. Isabella laughed. Nonna, stop selling your son like he's a prized racehorse. Let me meet him first. They both chuckled. Then the phone rang. Isabella picked it up. Hello? The voice on the other end was sharp and commanding. This is Don Alessandro Romano, the man who runs the club you worked at. Until today. Isabella's blood chilled. She had never met him before. Don Romano, she said cautiously. I hear you brought outsiders into my club and assaulted my fiancé. Who told you that you could start trouble in my house? That's not what happened, Isabella said firmly. I helped an old woman who had nowhere to go. She was sitting quietly. Your fiancé insulted her and threw her out. I defended her, that's all. You should have called me, Alessandro said coldly. You've been here 2 days and already you're making a mess. With respect, Don Romano, Isabella replied. I didn't think helping an old woman needed permission. Would you rather I left her to be thrown into the street? Alessandro's tone didn't soften. Valentina says she'll walk away if I don't get rid of you, and I can't lose her over a worker I barely know." A bitter laugh escaped Isabella's lips. "I expected nothing less. You're a man who lets his woman pull his strings." "What did you just say?" he hissed. "You heard me. Keep your job. I don't need it." She hung up. Nonna Rosa, who had been listening, asked quietly, "My child, was that your boss?" "Yes, and I'm fired. All because Valentina lied to him." Nona's face fell. "This is my fault." "No, Nonna. If I lost my position for standing up for you, I have no regrets." Later that night, Isabella noticed something about Nonna Rosa she hadn't before. Her phone. It wasn't some cheap payphone burner like most people in their position used. No, it was a polished, gold-trimmed, latest model handset, the kind only the bosses and high earners carried. It rang. Nonna Rosa answered in calm Sicilian. "See, it's me," she said softly. A deep male voice came through. "Mama, I'm back from the trip. Come home. I need to see you." He sounded weak. "You're not well?" she asked, her brow furrowing. "I'll be fine. Just come tomorrow." When the call ended, she tucked the expensive phone into her shawl. Isabella, narrowing her eyes, asked, "Nonna, who was that?" "My son," Nonna replied. "He just got back. Says he's sick. Wants to see me." "I'll come with you," Isabella offered. "No, figlia mia." Nonna waved it off. "I'll call you soon. Don't worry." Isabella glanced again at the phone. How does a woman fresh off the boat from Sicily have a phone like that? Nonna chuckled nervously. "My son saved up to buy it for me, so I could watch my favorite programs even when the power's out. He's thoughtful like that." Isabella smirked. "Your boy must really love you, Nonna, but you're still selling him too hard." The next morning, Nonna Rosa packed a small leather case and left Isabella's safe house. Hours later, she arrived at the Romano estate, a sprawling, walled compound outside the city, guarded by men in dark suits carrying Thompsons under their coats. She stood at the tall iron gates, her village clothes drenched from the mist. A guard approached her, squinting. "Who you here for, Signora?" "I'm here to see my son," she replied evenly. The guard turned, spoke into his radio. "There's an old lady here, says she's the Don's mother." The static crackled. A woman's voice came back, sharp and annoyed. "Send her away." The gate swung open just enough for Valentina De Luca to step out. She was in a tight black dress, diamonds at her throat, and a sneer on her lips. "You again?" she hissed. "What are you doing here, you crazy old witch?" "I'm here to see my son," Nonna Rosa said firmly. Valentina laughed in her face. "Your son? You must be lost. Go back to whatever alley you crawled out of." Nonna's eyes narrowed. "You've got no manners, ragazza. I pity the man who marries you." Valentina stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Listen here, old country. Don't think your village tricks will work here. Stay away from this house, or you'll regret it." She turned and walked back toward the mansion, tossing over her shoulder, "Never come near my husband's place again." Nonna's hand trembled as she pulled out her phone and dialed. "Come home now. I'm at your gate, and I've never been so insulted in my life." Minutes later, the low rumble of a black Packard sedan rolled up. Don Alessandro Romano stepped out, his coat collar turned against the wind. When he saw his mother standing there in her soaked shawl, his face hardened. "Mama, what happened?" "I went to your club earlier today, dressed like this. I wanted to test the woman you're set to marry. She failed." "Failed?" Alessandro's voice was tight. "A young girl named Isabella. She works for you. She gave me her umbrella, took me to her place so I wouldn't be stranded in the rain. She fed me, treated me like I mattered. But Valentina? She threw me out into the street." Alessandro's jaw clenched. "Come inside, Mama. We'll talk later." Inside the Grand Romano mansion, Alessandro helped his mother settle in a lavish guest suite. Then he walked back into the marble foyer just as Valentina entered, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Honey," she said casually, "did you see some old woman at the gate earlier? Claimed to be your mother? I had security shoo her off. Can you believe the nerve?" Alessandro's eyes went cold. "That old woman is my mother." She froze. I didn't. You insulted her, threw her out like trash, and you lied about Isabella. You made me fire a good soldier because of your petty spite. Allie, please." "No." His voice was final. "Pack your things. We're done." Her face twisted. "You're a fool, Alessandro. A mama boy. You'll never find another woman like me." "God willing," he replied. The heavy front doors shut behind her. The house was quiet now that Valentina was gone. Alessandro sat in the leather armchair of his study, a glass of bourbon in his hand, the smell of cigar smoke curling in the air. His mother stepped in, still in her old country clothes but with that same sharp look in her eyes. "My son," Nonna Rosa said, "I hope you see now, Valentina was never the right Donna for you." Alessandro nodded slowly. "You were right, Mama. I was blinded by the idea of love. But love without respect is worth nothing. Any woman who spits on my mother will never wear my ring." She gave him a faint smile. Then her tone softened. "There's something you need to know. When I was with Isabella, I told her certain things about you. I described a small, crumbling apartment above the fish market. Told my son was a hard worker, brilliant, but broke." Alessandro arched his brow. "You made me sound like a dockhand living hand to mouth?" His mother smirked. "I needed to see if she'd still agree to meet you knowing you had nothing. She passed the first test. She didn't hesitate." Alessandro leaned forward, swirling the bourbon in his glass. "Maybe, but in our world, Mama, people can fake virtue for a short while. I want to know if she'll look at me the same way when she thinks I'm just another street soldier with empty pockets." Nonna Rosa tilted her head. "So what do you want to do?" "I'll disguise myself. No tailored suits, no mansion. I'll meet her on neutral ground. If she truly has the heart you say, she won't change when she thinks I'm nothing but a struggling nobody." She nodded approvingly. "That's wise, but she can't come here. One look at this place and she'll know the truth. I'll give you her number. Arrange the meeting somewhere low-key." Alessandro pulled a small notepad from the desk and Nonna read off the digits. He memorized them, then picked up the black phone and dialed. The line clicked. "Hello?" Her voice was warm but curious. "Good evening. Am I speaking with Isabella Marino?" "Yes. Who's this?" "My name's Alessandro. My mother gave you your number. She told me how kind you were to her, how you looked out for her." "Oh, she spoke a lot about you too. Said you were a hard-working man." "I try," Alessandro replied with a faint chuckle. "She also said you wanted to meet me first before any talk of marriage. I respect that. Can we meet tomorrow?" "Yes," Isabella said without hesitation. "Where?" Alessandro thought. He needed a place that fit the disguise. "There's a little park near the East River docks, not far from the fish market. Few benches, quiet. Would that work?" "That's fine. What time?" 2 in the afternoon. The sun won't be too hot." "All right, I'll be there." "I look forward to it," Alessandro said and ended the call. His mother, leaning in the doorway, smiled knowingly. She agreed without hesitation. That's a good sign, but Alessandro's tone stayed measured. "Tomorrow will tell." The next day, Alessandro dressed in faded slacks, a plain shirt, and scuffed leather shoes. He left the gold cufflinks and silk ties in the closet, even swapped his gleaming Packard for a beat-up Ford, and tucked away his Rolex, carrying instead a cheap pocket watch. By 1:40 p.m. he was at the park by the river, sitting on a weathered bench under a crooked lamppost, the smell of sea salt and diesel drifting in from the docks. At exactly 2, Isabella arrived in a simple dress and flats, her hair neat, her eyes scanning until they landed on him. "You must be Alessandro," she said, taking a seat beside him. "And you must be Isabella," he replied with a warm smile. They sat in a comfortable pause, studying each other. Isabella was the first to break it. "I don't know why you share a name with my foolish ex-boss, the one who tossed me out over a lie." Alessandro fought back a laugh. "Your boss was named Alessandro too?" "Still is," she said, crossing her arms. "He fired me because his fiancée, the most arrogant woman I've ever met, threw an old woman into the street. Instead of hearing both sides, he believed her." "Sounds like a blind fool," Alessandro said evenly. "Letting someone else pull his strings?" "That's exactly what he is," Isabella muttered. "Anyway, enough about that. Tell me about yourself. Your mother told me plenty, but I'd rather hear it from you." "There's not much to say. I'm just a guy making ends meet. Day jobs, odd work at the docks, whatever keeps the lights on. It hasn't been easy, but I keep pushing." "I respect that," Isabella said. "Hard work's everything. Do you have dreams?" "Of course. One day I want my own place. Something lasting. Something that would make my mother proud." "That's why I agreed to meet you," Isabella said softly. "Any man who respects his mother is worth knowing." The morning after her meeting at the docks, Isabella was sitting in her small safe house above the tailor shop, sipping bitter espresso and thinking about Alessandro. There was something about him, something honest, easy to talk to, not like the bosses and soldiers she'd seen swagger through La Fortuna. Her thoughts were broken by the ring of her battered landline phone. She picked it up. "Isabella Marino?" "Yes, who's this?" "This is Santino, the consigliere for Don Romano. I'm calling on behalf of the boss." Her grip tightened on the receiver. "The Don?" "Yes, he's realized his mistake about you. He wants to make it right. You're being reemployed, but not as a runner, as his personal assistant." Isabella blinked. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll take it," Santino said with a faint chuckle. "This is the Don's personal request." She hesitated, then nodded to herself. "All right, I accept." "Good. Be at La Fortuna tomorrow morning." That night, she called Nonna Rosa. "Nonna, I have good news," she said, excitement in her voice. "My daughter, tell me." "They called me back, said the Don wants to correct his mistake. I'm now his personal assistant." Nonna clapped her hands. "You see, good things come to those with a good heart. I told you my son was good for you." "Nonna, Isabella," she groaned playfully. "Don't start matchmaking again." They both laughed. The next day, Isabella dressed in her best skirt and blouse, simple but sharp, and walked into La Fortuna's upper floor offices. Her stomach tightened as she knocked on the heavy oak door. "Come in," a deep voice said from inside. She stepped in and froze. Behind the desk sat Don Alessandro Romano, the same Alessandro she had met at the docks, the same name she'd cursed just days before. "Welcome back, Isabella," he said smoothly. "I trust you like your new position." "Thank you, sir," she said carefully, masking her surprise. "I want to sincerely apologize for what Valentina did. She was wrong, and I should never have believed her." "It's fine, sir," Isabella replied. "I've moved on." He studied her for a moment, then said, "You look beautiful today." Her spine stiffened. "Thank you, but if this is why you brought me back, I'm done." He raised his hands. "No, that's not it. My mistake. We'll keep this professional." "Good," she said, nodding curtly. That night, Isabella called the other Alessandro, the one she thought was just a struggling dock worker. "Babe, I don't like my boss. I think I want to quit." On the other end of the line,
Alessandro smiled to himself, but kept his voice concerned. What happened? He apologized, but then he started acting strange, telling me I look beautiful, asking me out. I shut him down, but I don't trust him. Don't quit, he said firmly. You need that job. Stand your ground if he tries anything again, but don't walk away. She hesitated. All right, if you say so. Weeks passed. Isabella kept her head down, running paperwork, scheduling meetings, guarding the Don's time like a hawk. Then one afternoon, Alessandro called her into his office. As my personal assistant, your position comes with certain benefits, a car, and a fully furnished apartment near the club. Isabella's eyes widened. Sir, are you serious? Of course, you've earned it. But then his voice softened. I still admire you, Isabella. You're beautiful, and She cut him off, her tone firm. Stop. I'm getting married soon. I'm in love with someone else. Please, let's keep this professional. He nodded slowly. All right, professional it is. Minutes later, Isabella was on the phone to the dock worker, Alessandro. You won't believe this, she said. My boss just gave me a car and a new apartment. Can you imagine? He chuckled. That's great news, babe. See, I told you not to quit. You were right, and because of that, I'm taking you out this weekend. My treat. He smiled. Babe, are you sure you can afford that? Don't worry about it. I insist. Saturday night came quick. Isabella spent the afternoon getting ready, wearing a simple but flattering navy dress and low heels. Classy, not flashy. This wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about showing appreciation. When dock worker Alessandro arrived in his beat-up Ford, she stepped out of her safe house with a smile. They drove toward the west side, the dim glow of street lamps bouncing off the wet cobblestones. The place she'd picked wasn't a regular joint. It was Il Gabbiano, a mob-owned supper club with white tablecloths, a live jazz trio, and enough shadowed corners for business to be done quietly. A waiter in a crisp vest led them to a cozy table near the window. This place is beautiful, Alessandro said, glancing around. I grinned. I wanted something nice, but not so expensive I'd be washing dishes to pay for it. They looked over the menus, ordered a couple of plates, veal marsala for him and linguine alla vongela for her, and spent the next hour trading stories between bites. Isabella talked about her work, about the colorful characters she'd seen come in and out of La Fortuna. Alessandro mostly listened, his eyes steady, like every word she said mattered. When they were finished, Isabella reached for her purse. But before she could hand the bills over, the waiter shook his head politely. Your bill's already been covered, signorina. Covered? She frowned. By who? The waiter only smiled. Compliments of the house. She glanced at Alessandro suspiciously. You didn't... He raised his hands. Babe, I'm a broke dock worker. How could I afford this? She chuckled, shaking her head. Maybe they're running a special for people with my good looks. They shared a laugh, but Alessandro's eyes grew serious. He set his fork down and leaned forward slightly. Isabella, I need to ask you something important. Her spine softened. What is it? I know it might seem sudden, but I've never met a woman like you. You're kind, loyal, fearless. From the first day I met you, I knew you were different. I want you by my side. Will you marry me? For a moment, the din of the supper club faded away. Isabella's heart thudded hard against her ribs. She hadn't seen it coming, not this soon, but her answer came without hesitation. Yes, Alessandro, I will. A rare, unguarded smile broke across his face. You just made me the happiest man in the world. She laughed through tears, shaking her head. Nona's going to have a field day with this. She'll say she told me so. Because she did, he said with a smirk. A few days after the proposal, Nonna Rosa called Isabella and invited her over for the weekend. Her voice on the phone carried that special excitement, the kind that makes you think she'd been waiting for this moment all her life. Saturday morning, Isabella put on a modest dress and caught a cab to the address Nona had given her. She expected something like her own place, maybe a slightly bigger apartment, maybe closer to the market. But as the cab turned up the hill, her eyes widened. They passed through a quiet neighborhood lined with tall oaks and private drives, the kind of area only the big earners could afford. Then the cab stopped in front of a massive wrought iron gate with 2 stone lions standing guard. Beyond it was a mansion, grand white columns, manicured lawns, and a long driveway disappearing toward the house. She stared at the paper in her hand, then at the gate. This had to be a mistake. Quickly dialing Nona, she said, "Nona, I think I'm at the wrong place. This looks like where the mayor should live." Her warm laugh came through the line. "No, filia mia, you're in the right place. Come inside. I'll explain everything." The gates opened without a word from the guard, who tipped his cap as she passed. Walking up the drive, her steps slowed with every marble step she climbed to the front door. Inside, the place smelled faintly of cigar smoke and polished wood. A sweeping staircase curled up toward the second floor. The walls were lined with oil portraits of men in fine suits, all of them with the same sharp Romano eyes. Nona Rosa rose from a velvet armchair in the grand living room. "My daughter," she said, embracing her warmly. Isabella pulled back slightly, still staring at the high ceiling and gold trim. "Nona, this house, you told me your son was broke, that he lived over a fish market." Nona sighed and took her hand. "I lied, Isabella. My son is Don Alessandro Romano. This is his house. This is his world." Isabella's mouth fell open. "You mean Alessandro the dock worker is him? The Don?" "Yes," Nona said softly. "He never meant to deceive you, to hurt you. He needed to know if you'd stand by him without the money, without the power, and you did. That's why he chose you." Isabella shook her head slowly, pacing the room. "You two made me believe he was barely scraping by? You let me think I was doing him a favor when all along?" Nona's eyes pleaded. "Perdonami, figlia mia. We needed to know your heart. You passed the test." Isabella stopped pacing, breathing deep. "I'm still mad, but I love you, and I love him, so I forgive you." Nona clapped her hands, her eyes shining. "I knew you were the right one." The wedding day came fast. Word spread through Little Italy like a summer fire. Don Alessandro Romano was marrying a woman from outside the old families. Not a rival's daughter, not some politician's niece, a civilian. And not just any civilian, the one who'd stood up to Valentina De Luca in his own club. The church was draped in white roses and crimson ribbons. Out front, black Packards and Cadillacs lined the curb, their chrome shining in the morning sun. Men in double-breasted suits and fedoras stood shoulder to shoulder, each with the faint bulge of a piece under his jacket. Inside, the pews were packed with both friends and business associates, some smiling warmly, others sizing up the new bride with a cautious eye. Isabella walked down the aisle on Nona Rosa's arm. The old matriarch beamed, proud as a queen. At the altar, Alessandro waited in a perfectly tailored black suit with a single white rose in his lapel. When Isabella reached him, he took her hand, his eyes steady but soft, the eyes of a man who had tested her, pushed her, and now trusted her completely. The vows were said in front of God, family, and a handful of priests who might or might not have been on the Romano payroll. When the kiss came, the church erupted in applause. The reception was held in La Fortuna itself, the club transformed with chandeliers, long banquet tables, and a live swing band. Halfway through the night, Don Alessandro stood and raised his glass. The chatter fell silent. "I want to tell you all something," he began, his voice carrying through the smoke-filled room. "When I met Isabella, I wasn't the Don to her. I was just a man she thought was struggling to get by. I wanted to see if she'd still stand by me with nothing in my pockets. She didn't just pass the test, she showed me what loyalty looks like when there's nothing to gain. That's the kind of woman you build an empire with." He turned to her, his gaze softening. "Bella, you've got the heart of a queen, and from this day on, this family, this city, and everything I am is yours." Glasses clinked, the band struck up a lively tune, and the party roared back to life. Later, as the guests danced and the deals were quietly discussed in the back rooms, Nonna Rosa leaned over to Isabella and whispered, "Remember, filia mia, in this world, love is tested like loyalty. You've proven both." Isabella smiled, watching her husband across the room, shaking hands with capos and old friends. She knew the life ahead wouldn't be easy, but she also knew they'd face it together. And in the shadows of Little Italy, under the weight of the Romano name, she took her first steps as the Don's wife. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching, and stay blessed.